Hey everyone, it's Leslie from Leslie's Cookies and Treats, and I'm back with the Shaggy cookie from our Scooby Doo series. So if you didn't catch the last video where I made the Scooby Doo cookies, what I did was I went on the internet and I found some clip art of Shaggy. And I copied and pasted that into a Word document where I sized it to fit my cookie. Then I printed it out and put it inside a sheet protector, and I'm basically just going to outline and flood in the different areas like I'm coloring a picture of Shaggy with royal icing. And for those of you who don't know, this is called a royal icing transfer, which I will later put onto my cookie. It's basically a big sprinkle. The royal icing consistency I'm using here is about a 20 to 25 second consistency. Because it's a little bit thicker, it is going to take some work with my scribe to settle the icing down. So I piped in Shaggy's neck, and then I let that dry for about 5 minutes, and then I went ahead and piped in his ear, and I let that dry for a few minutes before piping in his face. And next up is Shaggy's shirt, so I'm going to outline and flood in the little sections of his shirt. And in my Scooby Doo video, I talked about some of the reasons why using royal icing transfers is so awesome. But one of the things I didn't mention was that when you do royal icing transfers, you can pick the best one to put on your cookie. So all of your cookies come out perfectly, and you don't have to worry about craters or anything that you might wake up in the morning and find out that your cookies are no longer as perfect as they looked the night before. With royal icing transfers, you know exactly what you're getting. So I'm going to go ahead and outline his hair. I'm going to start with all the inner pieces, and I'm going to actually outline that twice because I want to create a wall for the icing to not run into each other, to kind of keep some separation in those areas. So I piped this little section on the right side of his face, and I'm going to let that dry for about 5 minutes before I come back in and then go ahead and flood in the rest of his hair. I'm going to be careful not to go over my lines that I already piped in, so I keep that separation. And that little hair that's off to the left side, I'm not going to pipe that in because it will break when I take the transfer off the transfer sheet, so I'll pipe that right onto the cookie. And because my icing is thicker, I'm stopping after doing a little bit at a time and smoothing the icing out with my scribe, and then I'll stick my icing bag right into where I left off and continue flooding the hair. I'm also using my scribe to help move the icing into the corners and the little points of his hair. Once I've finished flooding his hair, I'm going to let Shaggy dry completely, at least 8 to 12 hours, before I remove him from the transfer sheet. So now Shaggy is completely dry, and I'm going to use a cookie stencil scraper from the cookie counters to slowly get him off of the transfer sheet. I'm going to be careful so I don't break his neck because that's a really skinny area. But apparently I was not careful enough, and I broke Shaggy's neck. I'm so sorry, Shaggy. Anyway, let's put Shaggy onto the cookie. I had some cookies I had made previously, and I'm just going to dry fit it and see where I like it, and then take some royal icing and squeeze it on the back of the transfer and gently press it down onto the cookie so that I don't break his neck again. And I'm going to go ahead and use the Shaggy with the broken neck because I think I can fix it without it being too noticeable, and this is how I did it. And now you can't really even tell that I broke his neck. Sorry again, Shags. But I also broke his shirt by putting too much pressure when I was putting the royal icing transfer onto the cookie. So I fixed it by covering it with another layer of royal icing. That works for this spot because this is the spot that's nearest to us when we're looking at the cookie. So making it a little bit thicker was perfect. And I used a dampened paintbrush to kind of move the icing into place and cover the edges. Next, I put the cookie under a projector and traced out his little beard stubble with an edible marker. And the last thing to do is to trace his hair and his shirt and just give a little more definition, and Shaggy will be done. And we can't forget those little hairs. So as you've noticed, royal icing transfers can be a little bit fragile, so you're going to always want to make sure you make extras in case you have things that break. And you're going to want to be careful not to apply too much pressure when putting it onto the cookie. It might help if you put the transfer on the cookie while the cookie flood is still wet. Anyway, I think Shaggy came out looking pretty good in the end. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. Don't change the channel to see the rest of the gang. Bye.
Scooby Dooby Doo!